Hello there, my name is Rolly, ZL1BQD. Those that have been following my channel will know that I've been speaking to my friend Gary, ZL3SV, and talking about his marvellous setup that he has here, particularly his antenna system and been living off the grid, so to speak. Inevitably, there have been a lot of questions asked on some of the videos, and some of the questions I've been able to answer myself and quite adequately, I think. But there's one or two questions that have got me stumped a little. So here we are on a revisit with Gary, ZL3SV. Will let Gary answer the questions for himself? So come on, let's go and find Gary and see what he's up to, shall we? Well, here we are again, Gary.
We are. We're getting good at it.
What a great... I've been looking forward to this, to be honest, because we've had a lot of the viewers on the YouTube channel have had lots of questions.
Well,
and I've been able to answer some of them.
Yep.
I hope adequately, and for some of them I go, this would be best answered by yourself.
Yep.
And so thanks for the revisit.
Absolute pleasure, absolute pleasure. Well, right now we are on 40 metres and it is nearly midday, and these are a couple of Aussies. As you can see, when they're not speaking, the noise level is 0. This is on the big antenna. And antenna number 2 I've got set on the half-wave dipole. So there's the big antenna, and now I can go to the half-wave dipole. The half-wave dipole gets quite a bit of QSB on it, so we'll go back to...
Quite a bit of background noise too, isn't there?
And then we'll go over to the big antenna. Big difference.
Oh, huge, isn't it? All that background noise just drops away.
Well, it's all about signal-to-noise ratio, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, that's lovely. This is 40 metres, incidentally, basically midday, so,
that's 2,500 kilometres during the middle of the day.
Across to Australia.
In the summer.
Yeah. It's Okay, just switch back to the half-wave dipole again then, Gary.
So I guess that's half the fun with these things, trying to get it working. So it's hard if you can't hear the station, though. That is difficult. I've been working on this 80 metre thing.
As you can hear the background noise come up.
Yes.
Now I've got noise cancelling turned on, and the bandwidth is communications quality.
Yes.
But as you can hear, it's readable, but it's not particularly clear, is it? Big difference, isn't it?
That's magnificent. That's huge. Yeah.
It's not just a little bit. That's
significant, isn't it?
Well, it's about 4 S points, which is 60B is quite substantial.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. And of course, if I go off the frequency, as you can see, the noise level is 0, even with the amplifier preamp turned on.
Right.
If I go onto antenna 2,
there's your dipole.
Yeah, the noise is pretty similar, still 0. But the difference is that the dipole is more omnidirectional than the big antenna. The big antenna, the lobes are off each end, which means that I put a signal into Australia and over America into Europe that way. Now the rest of the world is pretty useless. I have a terrible job getting up into Asia, Japan, South Africa. I've only heard one station on there very weak, and yet if I was listening to that South African station and I changed antennas, it would be the opposite situation, because the half wave is much stronger than the big antenna.
Yeah. Just simply due to its orientation. Yeah.
And it would be definitely a bit of a challenge to rotate this big antenna.
Yes, those of you who look, there's another video that I did with Gary a little while ago concerning his antenna. Look it up, and I'll put a link in the description below. So have a look at that. That'll this will make a lot of sense if you have a look at that, perhaps first even. So there we go.
Of course, one of the things with things like half-wave dipoles is going back to the CB radio days, there was a situation where people would put an antenna on their vehicle and then they would try and tune it up, and the problem with it was that the feed impedance of the antenna at the base was not 50 ohm.
Yes, that's right.
And in most cases, if you folks have got a mobile antenna and you put a coil at the base of it, which say about 16, 18 turns of, say, about 1 millimetre diameter wire, enamel, and you put that at the base, and what that does is that the lower you go in frequency, the more it helps to match the antenna to 50 ohm. It's still not 50 ohm, but it takes it a lot closer.
Yeah.
Now, once you do that, and you've got your feed impedance to any antenna that's the same as your coax, then the length of coax doesn't matter.
It's irrespective. It becomes it becomes invisible, really.
Exactly.
Other than its ohmic losses.
Yes, exactly. And it's the loss per 100 meters, and of course the specs of the coax will show all that.
Yes.
Now, so it doesn't matter of the length apart from the actual losses, but the impedance is still the same.
Yes.
And a lot of people can't get their head around that. They think you've got to have tune lengths and all that. The only reason that having cutting bits off your coax is because part of your coax is acting as the antenna because it's not matching to 50 ohms.
Exactly.
Right? So yes, you chop bits off, and hey presto, you get a good SWR and you think everything's all cool. But then you wonder why the person next to you with the same antenna with tuned at the bottom and matched up properly is getting a much better transmit and receive.
Yes, it's the age-old thing, isn't it? Yes, you can get things to make the transmitter happy with a nice low SWR, but the radiation efficiency of the antenna can be absolute rubbish. Yeah.
Well, it's like doing 100 kilometres an hour in your car and you want to drop it back down to, say, 80. You don't put your foot on the brake, do you? Right? It's as simple as that.
Yes,
now,
exactly.
That shouldn't be confused with the fact that you can use lengths of cables for matching. For example, you can use a length of cable to take your 50 ohm to 200 ohm balanced.
Yes.
Also, you can use a length of cable which is tuned, which can act as a stub.
Yes.
So if you've got a antenna which is just on one frequency only, say 2 meters, you could, and you're worried about the third harmonic maybe, then what you could do is you put a stub in, and what that does is at the frequency you're using, it doesn't do anything. It has no effect whatsoever. Yet at all other frequencies, it will attenuate it.
Yes.
Proportional to the frequency.
Yeah, and that's very doable, isn't it? For VHF and UHF frequencies, because your physical lengths that you're dealing with are manageable. Maybe a bit of a challenge if you're going to do it at 80 meters or 160 meters, but
that's true. That's true. Yeah, it's just a bit of a waste of drum and coax. But
exactly.
There are other things, lots of other things, of course, but these are just little tricks. And it's very easy, even if you don't have an antenna analyzer. All you've got to do is have your length of cable out, put a dummy load on the end, put a T in there, put a length of cable out, and then do a sweep with your radio, and you'll soon see the frequency that the SWR drops right back down to nothing. Then you know you've got the frequency. So you can get by without an analyzer, but
yes, you can analyse and make it a little bit easier, of course. But in fact, you and I are both radio engineers from a way back, and
I know.
And often we get ourselves out into the field somewhere into a situation where okay, I don't have all the gear that I really need. Often it's going right back to basics, isn't it? Something like that, and to try and fix a problem or analyse a problem. Yeah.
As long as you know enough to be dangerous, at least you know to find where the book is and to look it up and to be able to find that out.
Exactly.
And I just say to folks today, if you're thinking about building an antenna, no matter what it is, have a look at the antenna books, have a look on, there's online information about different antennas and their gain, and you can spend an awful lot of time and money chasing 1 or 2 dB. And I've opted to chase many times more that. And yes, it's been a lot more work, and yes, it's cost a lot. I've had arborists here climbing trees and people helping me do it. I haven't done it all by myself.
Right.
So, you know, it's the sort of thing that if you're chasing lots of gain, yes, you can get it, but you have to kind of make a lot of effort.
You have to work at it.
And there are some hams around the world that have got spectacular antennas. And particularly in the States and Europe, there are some massive arrays there.
Yes.
And good on them, because they've done their homework, it's well engineered, and their signals, well, they just romp in here and says it all.
Exactly. The results are very evident, aren't they?
Yeah. And one of the things I keep with software on here is keeping an eye on atmospheric conditions. Like, for example, we know at the moment that there is a storm, a thunderstorm over in Australia, and we can keep an eye on what's happening. You can see here, and this is showing the different sensors around Australia that received that lightning strike then, and it shows you where it's moving. And I was just listening a little earlier to some people who were saying that it's actually teeming down with rain in Sydney, and it gives us an idea of how close it is, so we know that we're getting a few crashes and bangs. We know how far it's away, and we know the direction and where it's going. And
we often say here in New Zealand, when they flush the Opera House in Sydney, 3 days later we get the backwash.
Yes, we do.
Here in New Zealand.
Yeah. But anyway, that's the setup here. I've got, this is a digital, the FTD 400. This is a TS2000. It's just sort of, I use that sometimes on data, the FT8 and things like that. And then there's another dual bander over there. This is an antenna tuner. Both of these rigs have got antenna tuners built into them, so I don't very often sort of use that. Microphones, I've got a software-defined radio here. This is the Apache, and I use that quite a bit on AM, but most of the time I just use this radio here. Does the trick. It's the FT-DX101MP. It is the latest 200 watt software-defined radio from Yaesu. I've only had it for about 3 months. I did a lot of the research online, looked at the specs, looked at the forums just to see what people thought about it.
Yeah.
Most people seem to be pretty happy, so I thought, right, we'll just go for it. Do it. And I've put on a new desk here and tidied everything all up so that there's all the wiring's in a loom in the back. And I've got wheels on this desk. If I want to do any work on it, I just lift this part up, pull it out. I can work on the back and then push it back in again. And works superb.
Yeah, great.
So it's just little things. I'm not saying what I'm doing is right or wrong. I'm just saying, hey, look, that's what I'm doing.
It works for you.
It works for me. I'm happy with it. Wife is happy that it's nice and neat and tidy. Everyone's happy.
There we go. Thanks, Gary, for a rundown here and a great yarn about antennas. It's all good stuff.